This morning I want to talk for a while about the direct way to nurture a spiritual awakening. The so-called spiritual growth is really an awakening process, and really our improved understanding is the result of self-revelation, an unveiling and coming forth, or at least a revealing, making available to us the knowledge that is already innate to us about our true nature and ultimate reality and our relationship to it. So it's important to remember that we are, as spiritual beings, units of the pure essence of ultimate reality. And therefore, what is true of it must be true of us, and then, therefore, its purity and wholeness and serenity and innate knowledge of itself we must have within ourselves. And this is what self-realization is all about. The word self is used with an uppercase S to indicate our essence, our true nature, our true self-identity, in contrast to what Western psychologists refer to as ego, or the small sense, confined sense of self-identity. The word ego is from German, das Ich, which means the I, the sense of I-ness. And unless we are self-knowing, self-realized, usually when we think of I, we think of this personality-oriented, mistaken sense of self-identity. This is what I am. But a little bit of reflection reveals intuitively, and perhaps through discernment, intellectual discernment, that we are the observer. We observe our thoughts and our emotions and our personality characteristics. And even this small sense of I exists, we observe that. So we are other than what we observe. So we are the witness, the observer, changeless being. And when this is consciously experienced, then we say it is realized. Before that, it is known about. And it's good to know about it, but when we experience it as being true, then this is realization. Realization is experience along with knowledge of something. So self-realization is experience along with knowledge of our true nature, just as God realization would be experience along with knowledge of that ultimate reality as it is, not as we imagine it to be or formally imagine it to be, or what others say it is, but as it is. So there is an ultimate reality, one reality, which exists. And in Western culture, we refer to it as God. The word God, however, the word itself, not God, but that which is called God, but the word God is only about 2,000 years old. It was coined or originated by a man, a bishop, who translated the New Testament into Old German dialect, and they came up with a word combined from German and Dutch that later was changed to the word God. But so when we use the word God, we usually think of an ultimate reality. But it's well to understand what that reality is. It's not a person, but it has two aspects. One aspect is absolute or pure, and without characteristics or attributes. It just is. It is just pure existence, pure being. Has always been and always will be what it is. But there is an aspect of it, of that reality, which has characteristics, energetic influences, and in Sanskrit they are called gunas, which mean threads, and these vibrations, really threads of vibrations, produce universes. So there is in ultimate reality, there is the pure, changeless, pure existence, without attributes or characteristics, and there is the aspect with characteristics, which makes possible manifestation of universes and their functions and operations. So we can know what that reality is by direct experience. We can somewhat intellectually examine and perhaps get a handle on it, but not completely. And with intuition, we can have more insight. But then when we experience it, then that is realization. But first step is self-realization, experience and knowledge of what we are as a unit of pure consciousness. And earlier when we were meditating, I mentioned that the purpose of meditation is to calm the mind and the emotions and to clarify awareness so that what is true of us can be self-evident or self-revealed. It is apprehended and experienced. And we find this mentioned in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, which is the basic text on Kriya Yoga practice. In the second sutra of the first chapter, Yoga, Chitta, Vritti, Nirodha. You don't have to learn Sanskrit, but as well to remember that second sutra. Yoga is really the result of the Nirodha, or the turning back and quieting of the vrittis, the fluctuations and movements in mind and awareness. And that Chitta is the field of awareness in which there is mind, sense of I-ness or ego awareness, intellect, and ourselves as the observer. But when the waves of the mind, or the wave-like movements in mind and awareness, are stopped and we remain conscious, then our awareness is clear and we have an opportunity to experience our true nature as it is. So the sutra following the second one, the third sutra, simply was written. Then the seer, the observer, the experiencer, abides in itself. That is, when you get the debris out of the way and the mind is clear and the emotions are settled and awareness is clear, there is only self-awareness, self-knowing, self-experience. And then the next sutra, otherwise, attention and awareness are inclined to again identify with external conditions. So we've all experienced that. Perhaps we meditate, we experience a degree of peacefulness and serenity, and then we come out of meditation, and before long we're involved again in our thoughts and our emotions and the stuff that's coming down around us and the news that we are exposed to through the media and so forth. And maybe then even become forgetful of our true nature. Perhaps we had a glimpse of it or a perception of it when we were meditating, or at other times when we were still. But then when our attention was directed outward, we forgot and became involved out there once again. Of course, the idea is to get to the place where we are so self-knowing, so self-aware with an uppercase S, so self-realized, that even after meditation or when we're not contemplating higher realities, we are always inwardly aware of what we are as an observer, as a being of pure consciousness, even when we are relating to our small sense of self-identity and to our expressing through our senses and interacting with others and attending to our duties and fulfilling our purposes. Inside, we're always poised in self-awareness, self-knowing. That's the ideal, to get to the place. It's one thing to meditate, to get to the stage of what we call superconsciousness or transcendence, where our attention is removed from mundane concerns and conditions, And we just abide in that awareness of being, and it's so pleasant and satisfying and fulfilling. That's one thing, and it's useful. But it's important to progress beyond that and get to the place where we're always and really aware of our true nature when we are not meditating. So we don't have to be reclusive or off in a monastery or hidden off in a cave someplace in the woods to be successful on our spiritual awakening path. But we have to understand that contemplation and inner peacefulness as a result of disconnecting for a while from external conditions, that is useful and beneficial, but we can't sit there forever in that internalized condition. We've got to come out and relate to the environment and fulfill our purposes in life. And so we want to be able to do that with full awareness of what we are and what we are about and why we do what we do and so on. And that is possible. That is called the superior state of realization, when you're always self-knowing, self-realized, regardless of what you are doing, not just when you are internalized and your attention is pulled back and away from outside conditions that are possibly distracting.